Alrighty, folks, we are live. If you are watching in on the replay, thank you so much for being here. As always, it is a pleasure. And you know what to do already. Just drop a comment with hashtag replay. Tell me where you are from, where you're listening from, and you're going to love this episode. It's going to be a heck of a lot of fun. I'm just doing my usual check to make sure that I can hear myself. If you are watching in on my phone, which I can. So, like I say, if you're tuning in on the replay, thanks so much for being here. We're going to get started with the show in just a second, but let me know where you're listening from. And if you are tuning in live, I can see there's people coming in live. Again, drop a comment. Tell me where you're from. So we're currently live across Facebook, my personal Facebook, my business Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Periscope. So please drop a comment. Tell me where you're listening from in the world. Again, last time we had everywhere from Ireland to down in York, Sheffield, and a few people over in the US. So it's always fun to see where we are getting listeners from, because I can see the analytics in my. As you know, this is a podcast, and I can see the analytics of where people are listening on the podcast, but I don't get to see the analytics where people are watching on the lives and the replay. So I rely on you guys to drop a comment and tell us where you're listening from. Now, I am super excited about this episode because I have a dear friend of mine, somebody that's just up the road from me, that has achieved incredible things in their career, and I'm excited to dive into it. So Mark says he's from Bristol. Hey, Mark, nice to see you here. I'm just going to get started, folks. I am going to roll the introduction and bring in today's guest. You're going to love this. This is a topic that I love. Hey, Ben, nice to see you, pal. And let's rock and roll. Let's do this, folks. I was just going to start, but I didn't hit record. That's the joys of going live. Right. Let's hit record and start that again. Hey, you are listening to the Funnels and Growth Show. My name is Gavin Bell, and I've discovered a little bit of a problem. You see, too many entrepreneurs are great at what they do, but they never see true growth. All too often, they rely on luck, hustle, and hope to grow, which, as you probably know, isn't the best marketing strategy. So in this show, I try to uncover the secrets around creating a marketing system that allows you to build your audience, generate more leads, and acquire customers at a profit. Now, on today's show, we have something a little bit different, something that I've not done before on this show, which is really exciting. I think you're going to love this. You know, growing up, I was massively into sports and athleticism, if that is the right word. And I believe, and I feel like growing up in the world of business, that my kind of understanding of sports and athletics was kind of what's helped me grow as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, because I believe that the skills and the mindset required in sport are the exact same as required in business. So I thought this week I'm going to reach out to somebody that I met a couple of years ago at an event that we both spoke at. She's a swimmer, but not just any old swimmer. She's a triple Olympian, a double Commonwealth champion, and a world and European champion medalist. And I wanted her to come on the show so we can learn what it takes to be an athlete at the top of their game, and how we as entrepreneurs, as business owners, can learn from that, and can learn how we can be the best entrepreneurs possible by tapping into the mind of an athlete. So, without further ado, welcome to the show, Hannah Miley. Hannah, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Like we were saying off of air, it's been a couple of years, and a couple of crazy years at that, since we last got to hang out in person. Imagine that.
I know. It's scary. Time flies when you're having fun, sort of.
True. Now, Hannah, before we dive into the meat of what we want to talk about around mindset and being an athlete, I want to just dive into a little rumor that I've heard, which is I heard that you have caused a national security breach in Delhi. What on earth went on there?
It was back in 2010 for the Commonwealth Games. So after the swimming section of the championships had finished, we got to do a little bit of exploring, and they offered us to go and visit the Taj Mahal, some of the markets, and just to get a bit of a taster for being in India and the experience for it. We were given tickets, and if anything was going to go wrong, it's always going to happen to me. I don't know whether it's just my name, Miley, that just, yeah. If anything goes wrong, and Miley's normally involved. And I noted that the ticket I had was not in the same group of tickets that the rest of my teammates were in. So we arrived at the station. We had to get a train. It was like a 2-hour train ride from the village that we were in to go to the Taj Mahal. And yeah, the ticket I was on was in a completely different carriage. And what I then found out was that carriage with the people, with all the other athletes from the different nations, that was who you were to spend the excursion day with. So that was now, I had to make a couple of new friends, which was great, but passed my swimmer teammates along the way. And although it was a great fun day, but it was on the way back. We had to go back to our seats, and I kind of noted that they weren't really checking, or I didn't think they were checking which seats you were sitting in. So I kind of thought, oh, I'm going to go and sit with the swimmers. It's on the way home. We've done the excursion, and I just want to catch up with them. So I went back to a couple of carriages and sat with them, and we played card games and waited for the train to leave. And then we kind of noted there was a bit of a commotion on the platform. There was more armed guards, and the guys were wearing like really big guns. There were a couple of German Shepherd sniffer dogs. And in the span of like 10-15 minutes, the numbers just doubled. There was more and more of them, and they all looked slightly panicked. And there were people running up and down the train, kind of looking quite panicky as well. And then all of a sudden, there was this announcement. And I won't do the accent because I really feel bad because my Indian accent isn't great. But basically, they announced that they were missing a passenger. It was an emergency announcement. They're missing a passenger from carriage 5. And I was mortified because the carriage that I was originally in was carriage 5. So I had to let them know that it was me. I was the one that was missing. I'm not missing. I'm actually here. And what I hadn't realized was that they had counted each of the carriages, how many people there were in each bit. And obviously they realized that there was a missing person in carriage 5. But I was kind of surprised that they didn't pick up that there was an extra person in carriage, I think 8 or 10 that I was in. So I had to do the walk of shame all the way back up. But they were full on ready to do a search because they thought I'd been kidnapped or worse, murdered. I don't know. But yeah, they hit the red button with a security panic. So I was in a lot of trouble when I got back.
That is hilarious. Having been in Delhi, I can only imagine what a national security breach in Delhi is like.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that takes the walk of shame to a whole new level, I feel.
Very much so, yeah.
Good job. Good job. Like I said in the intro, I feel like I'm well, I feel like I am obsessed with sport and athletic performance, and just this notion of performance in general. I feel, like performance in life, performance in sport, performance in business. And obviously with that, as somebody that puts himself out there and tries hard at something, whether that's an athlete, whether that's a business owner, there's going to be lots of highs and lows. The low might be national security issue in Delhi, and the highs might be, winning a medal. So I want to ask, like, what would you say in your career as an athlete has been the highest high that you've experienced, and what's been the lowest low?
It's been quite a few things. I think if you asked me that maybe 4 or 5 years ago, the highest high would certainly be winning a medal, and then the lowest low is definitely not winning a medal. And I'd have to say, since Rio in 2016, I missed an Olympic medal by 1500ths of a second. And that really kind of shook my core, because every athlete, if you want to try and aim to be the best and be at the top, to win an Olympic medal is the ultimate dream. And to just miss it by such a small margin as well is hugely impactful. And it took me a long time to kind of come away from it feeling settled, feeling that I could kind of put it to bed. Because, I put this whole pressure of I need to win this medal. This is what defines me. I'm defined by the medals and the accolades that I've won. And I kind of came to realize that I've achieved so much more than just the medals. So 5 years ago, I would have said probably my high would have been winning the gold medal at the 2014 Commonwealth Games, defending my title. Not purely because being on the podium and hearing the Scottish national anthem was just amazing, but that whole year leading up to it was horrible. It was one of the worst years ever. I had a lot of pressure put on me. I had a lot of self-doubt. Everything was going wrong, and I really had to stay patient, keep following the process, trust my coach, trust myself that it will come together at the right point. And it just so happened that everything aligned at the right moment. and I got the reward from it, and it just meant so much more. And then I could just relax and enjoy the rest of the competition. And it was one of the best competitions I'd ever been to. So not just being on the podium, but enjoying breaking barriers with personal best times in other events that I don't normally get to swim, and just seeing a huge progression in my performance. Now my sort of like main goal, my highest high possibly would be that 4th place in Rio, purely because it's the best performance that I'd ever achieved at an Olympic Games. And it taught me a massive lesson. And without that, I certainly wouldn't be the athlete that I am today. I wouldn't have, I guess, more understanding and maturity in how to deal with performance. Because we see performance in athletes as they win medals, and people will only ever talk about medals. And we want our athletes to win medals. But in how they get there, the hours that they put in behind it, the heartache of when you have a really bad session, or you just miss out on something, or injuries. There's lots of little things that kind of go on in the background. It's like an iceberg. The medal winning is just the tip of the iceberg. The bit that happens underneath, not many people get to see. So for me, Rio was probably a really incredible high, because I am proud of it. And yeah, it wasn't the medal, but it was still a really, really incredible performance. So 5 years ago, my lowest low possibly would have been 2006. I'd missed out on qualifying for the World Championships. I was too cocky going into the final. We had a set qualifying time that we had to do. And I thought, yeah, I've got this in the bag. I always go faster in the final. And I didn't. I went slower than what I did in the heats. And that was a real kick in the teeth. And I missed out, I think, on like 4 or 5 international competitions because of that one swim. So that was not a good time for me. Coming to now, my lowest low possibly would be at the minute coronavirus, because it's just completely changed everything. I have since been able to turn it on its head and actually see it more as a positive. But to start with, I guess April time, that possibly would have been my lowest low, because it threw everything out the water. Again, had this solid type plan. I was going to be swimming the Olympic trials in April. We were going to be competing in the Olympics. I was going to look at possibly retiring as well. So trying to plan for life out with sport, and all of that's just kind of gone. And I was left in a bit of a big hole. So I've since then come out from it, but I guess the coronavirus has kind of hit me in kind of a bad way.
Yeah, I feel you. I think there's probably a lot of people listening that feel the same way. But I'm really really intrigued by some of the things that you mentioned there about trying to grasp what it must feel like to miss out on a medal at that tiny scale, and for
Yeah.
your ability to turn that into a positive is something that's commendable. And so I want to, like, bringing this back to kind of entrepreneurship and business owners. There's going to be times where you feel extremely low, whether that is missing out on a deal, whether that is not making the financial targets that you needed to hit. Maybe that's losing a client, whatever that might be. So with you in your career, when you've experienced lows, and I'm really intrigued by this year leading up to your Commonwealth victory that you said was terrible. Like, that really intrigues me. So thinking about your lows, like, how have you gone about overcoming them? Do you have do you have a process that you try and overcome them with, or how do you take on the lows that inevitably have in a career as an athlete?
Yeah, and everybody I think deals with it slightly differently. I've got a couple of strategies that I've put in place, because there isn't necessarily always one that fits for that current one. I've got a couple, and I kind of try and work around those. And also I kind of learned to adapt a little bit more. I think once you feel like you've hit the low, again, I try and think in my head that the only way is back up. So there will be a time where things will come back up. So it's reminding yourself that it's not all bad. Things will get better. One is I sometimes get a piece of paper. I split it down the middle. I have one column that I put can control, and the other side can't control. And I list all the things that I can control right now. The things that basically that I can do something about, something that I can have an impact and effect. And then I write on the other side all the things that I can't control, the things that I worry about, the things that stress me out, things that I'm anxious about, but actually I don't have any control over it if I really sit and think about it. So for me, maybe coming into a competition, I could feel quite nervous. I'll sit and write, okay, well, I can't control the water temperature. I can't control who I compete against. I can't control the psych sheet and the sort of lane orders. I can't control the judges. Like, the list of the can't controls is actually a lot bigger than the can controls. But one of the things that a lot of people tend to miss out is the one thing I can't control is my results. I can't control sometimes the outcome. All I can do is just focus in on what I can control. And then the sort of cathartic bit is then being able to rip that in half, get what you can't control, scrunch it in the ball and put it to one side, because you don't have to worry about it. You shouldn't have to worry about the can't control section. So for me, sometimes that works. Another bit as well, if I've done a performance that I've not been happy with, is being quite brutally honest with yourself and looking back, analyze it, but not overanalyze it, and pick two things. One thing that went well. So some people is very quick to pick up on all the things that didn't go right, but actually, if you really try and look into something, yes, it might not have gone according to plan, but there will be something positive from it, and you really have to dig deep to try and find it. So find that thing. Find the second thing of what didn't go right. Now, and only pick one thing. It's very easy to try and get a list of things, but pick that one thing that didn't go right. And then from there, what you're going to do to make that one thing better. So for me, performance-wise, if, say I wasn't happy with an outcome for 100 meters freestyle, one positive, I started the race. It could be something simple as that. And the one that didn't go right was, you know what, I breathed so much in the last 10 meters that I wasn't putting my head down. I didn't drive into the wall. So my finish could have been a lot better. So what I'm going to do to improve on that, going into training, I need to really focus in on tough training sets that I don't breathe into the last 10 meters. So there's a strategy to improve what didn't go right. And then it just means that you can move on from it and then being able to kind of park it. You found one thing that was good, one thing that wasn't good, park it, and then move on to the next thing. So it's all about moving forwards. I'm kind of a big fan of trying to not remain stuck and worry, try and find ways of being able to move forward. Granted, there might be times where you can't move forward, and it is okay sometimes to feel like, okay, I'm a little bit stuck. I get quite emotional as well, but I try and speak to people as well. Speak to my partner, I do speak to a sports psychologist. I feel that's a huge advantage as well. But you do come out on the other side. So I think having a couple of strategies in place to kind of help you mentally sort out what's happening in your head and make you feel like, okay, now I've got a clear directive to be able to move forward.
Yeah, I like that. And for me, as somebody that's a super logical thinker, those things just make sense.
Yeah.
And first think about whether people that are listening, maybe you have gone for a pitch with a client and it's not gone well. You've not got the job. Well, pick one thing that went well. Great, you've got that one thing, but also pick one thing that you could have improved on. And as Hannah says, don't just sit and worry about it. Is think about how can you improve that next time. That's the only way that you can move forward. And I really like that as just a general logical thing to do to get over some of those perhaps lows that come in life. So I like that. Speaking of the lows, I feel like we're talking all about the lows, but when obviously in sport, you put in an enormous amount of work, and you're going to training, and you're training, and you're training, and you're training, and you're training, and surely there must be days where you're like, the last thing I want to do is eat all of this food and go back in the pool and swim again. So on those days, how do you do it? What gets you into the pool? What keeps you motivated?
Routine. Routine's kind of a good sort of factor, because you kind of almost don't have to think too much. You kind of go into like an autonomous state where my body is pretty prescriptive and it knows what it needs to do. But there are days where you do feel like, you know what, I'm really tired. And some of the days where I do notice that fatigue, there's a couple of factors that come into play. So you've got nutrition and hydration, you've got sleep, you've got stressors, and then you've got training load. So those are kind of like the four kind of brackets. And if you don't have a good balance on all four, then that will impact your performance and can affect mood. And obviously being female, my mood swings kind of go up and down throughout each different month as well. But there's ways of being able to manage it. So if I am struggling, I kind of first think of, right, well, am I eating enough? Am I eating the right things? Is the food that I'm taking on good food, or is it, I don't have takeaway foods too much, but I do know that if I have, fish and chips or, McDonald's, I'd be paying the price for it the next day. My body just feels so sluggish and lethargic because I just take a lot longer to digest it. So having good fresh food, mentally, you just feel a little bit better in yourself. And also it does help pick up energy. Sleep is a big thing as well. If I do feel a little bit flat, am I getting enough sleep? They do say between 7 to 8 hours of sleep is ideal. Granted, there's going to be a couple of people out there where sometimes life just doesn't allow you to get that. As a performance athlete, if we get less than 7 hours of sleep, we increase our risk of getting injured by like 20%. So sleep is a big factor for recovery and hopefully helping you feel a little bit better as well. Training load as well. Our bodies can only take on so much. So I normally train between 28 to 32 hours a week. If I was to increase that, I need to make sure that I'm managing it with good sleep and good food as well, and also keeping hydrated. And then you've obviously got other stressors. So for like at the minute with coronavirus, this family stress, like this, my granddad at the minute's not been too well. My fiance's dad has also been in hospital, and there's lots of other things that can add stress. So it's being mindful that there are a couple of components that can impact on how you feel. And coming into the winter months as well, just the lack of light can also have a bit of an impact. I use a Lumi light, which is kind of like an alarm clock, but lights up the room. So I wake up to light rather than to sound. And I find that really does impact my mood and my energy as well. Waking up to light is such a kinder way to your body, so you're not feeling stressed out right from the word go. And I do really recommend it, especially for this time of the year. Even if you're not in sport, it's a great way to wake yourself up. You're not squinting and blinding yourself when you're trying to turn the light on, because the room's already lit up a little bit. And I wake up to that rather than an alarm clock. And that in itself helps sort of my mood swings and just make me feel a little bit better. And other little bits, music. For me, I love music. Getting a good playlist, like a go-to playlist to sing to in the car, or whilst I'm doing the washing up or the dishes, or just something to kind of pick my mood up. And I guess another kind of feel-good factor for me is my dog. She's amazing. Just being able to put the lead on her and be like, you know what, I just need to clear my head. Let's go out for a walk. And that in itself, just, a 20, 40 minute, 1 hour walk, however long it takes, that also makes a big difference for me. So yeah, I've got a couple of strategies.
Yeah. You know what I really like about that answer is talking about those four things: is nutrition, sleep, stressors, and training load. Because I actually, I mean, this is kind of when I talk about the similarities between entrepreneurship and being an athlete, is obviously being an athlete, nutrition, sleep, and training load are crucial to how you can perform in your training and then going into competitions. But I feel it's the same with business owners or high performance anything, where your sleep is so important. You don't get sleep, you're going to be sluggish. If you don't eat good food, you're going to be sluggish. You're going to struggle to concentrate. You're not going to put your best work out there. And so these things, although we're talking about it from your perspective as an athlete, I think they're just so important as a business owner too, because we're talking about performance here. We're not talking about being an athlete. And if you're not getting those four things right, and understanding that there are those four things first and foremost, then you're going to struggle. You're going to be sluggish. You're going to be grumpy. And if you're feeling like that, you're not going to be creative, and you're not going to be able to get your best work out there. So, yeah, that's awesome. So something I want to ask, which is maybe not so relevant to an entrepreneurial audience, but I just want to understand it because I just think it's cool, is see when you're at the side of a pool, of the pool for a big race.
Yep.
It's the final of something, you've got a chance to win a medal. What is that feeling like? What, like, the adrenaline? What talk me through that. What is it like?
Yeah, so you kind of go into what we call the zone. So basically anything out with the swimming pool doesn't matter. You are honed in. The years, the months, the hours of training, everything's prepared you for that one moment. You do remind yourself that it is just another competition. I've been doing all the training and practice for it, but you get a little bit of an excitement and a bit of a buzz. You are about to go up against some of the best athletes in the world, and there's a chance for you to pit yourself against it. You don't know how those other girls are going to go. And if you can come away on top, then it's brilliant. But at the same time, you know that things can happen and you might not have a good swim. So it's trying to do everything possible to minimize a bad performance and do whatever it takes or do whatever you can to ensure that the performance that you give is the best it can be. So you get hit with a lot of emotions. You can get a little bit of anxiety. I don't know whether it's an athlete thing, but we get a little bit superstitious as well. There's certain things that you do to try and, I guess it's that control, because there's a lot of things that we can't control, so we can control what we do. So sometimes the little quirks that we have are just our way of trying to feel in control of our performance. Excitement as well, because you work so hard for that one point and you want to see, can you perform at your best? Can you take it to the next level? Can you reach that goal and get a personal best time or get a medal? So you kind of flip between the sort of excited energy, and I say energy because nerves do come into it, but it's okay to have nerves, and I think that's important because we're human. We're allowed to feel these different emotions. But yeah, it's a pretty exciting thing, and especially when you get big athletes coming a path, like watching Michael Phelps and he just walks past, or Ryan Lochte, or Chad Leclos, or Rebecca Adlington, like some of the big names in swimming, and you're there with them and you suddenly feel like I am just as good as these guys. So yeah, it's a huge bundle of energy that you can get, and it's very spectacular. But the funny thing is you kind of go into when you see the pool for the first time, you think it's going to be this massive, spectacular thing, but the swimming pool always looks the same. 10 lane, 50-meter pool, blocks in each lane, lane ropes. It's always the same. It's just obviously what's around it that's different, but you're kind of so focused in on what you're going to be doing in the water that those bits don't matter. But yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's a very cool experience.
So when you're getting into the zone, is that a conscious thing, or you're like, right, it's time to get in the zone, or does it just happen?
It kind of just happens. So everything leads into that point. It's not something going, right, I'm in the zone. Because as soon as you say you're in the zone, you're not in the zone. And it's one of these little kind of complicated things. And I guess in business sense, if you're going for a pitch, you kind of, at that point when you feel ready for it and you just want to do it. It's kind of the same thing. You just get that mindset where it's almost like tunnel vision. You see your lane, you know what you need to do, and you just want to get on and do it. Nothing else is going to distract you. You feel confident, you feel happy, you feel ready. Yeah, there might be little bits of bubbles of nerves and stuff, but you've got all of that under control. You are in control of what you're about to do. So you hear the word being in the zone quite a lot in sport, and everybody's process to get into it is very, very different, and everyone's experience is very different. But for me, I kind of feel it starts the night before, packing my bag, the little things, getting the right, I have like a set meal that I have a set routine. Again, routine's kind of big thing for me. As soon as I follow that routine, my head slowly goes down into the zone and I kind of go into that tunnel vision until I get to the moment where I need to perform.
Yeah, and you need to stick it in. When you're about to jump in the pool and give that performance, and I want to kind of relate this to the likes of maybe speaking on stage as a speaker or business owner speaker. How do you know that you're going to give a good performance?
You don't. Literally, you don't. Not until you touch the wall. And even still, when you turn around and look at the scoreboard, how your performance went is purely subjective.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because for me, my fourth place, I was so split because you got one side. There were my parents and my friends and family were just so excited and so happy for me that it was the best performance ever. And I could understand that and I could be that. But at the same time, the other side was, I just missed the medal. And, some people I saw some people who got fourth places and that was it. It was the end of the world. So your performance is really subjective. And ultimately, it's what do you define as success? Is it winning the medal? Is it coming fourth? Or is it just being in the final? I think as an individual, once you know what your definition of success is, that's when you know your performance is going to go really well. Obviously, if you get disqualified or do anything really obvious, and that can obviously make your performance not as good. But yeah, whether you know it's going to be a good performance or not, you don't really know until it's finished. And then once you basically analyze it and get that feedback and how you take that on. So, yeah.
That's a really interesting way to look at it, I think. It being subjective, because I mean, it makes sense when you say it, but it's like, okay, what is your definition of success? Because I would imagine that, and this is maybe not so much when it comes to um, larger sporting events where you want to win, but when it comes to maybe training and smaller events whereby you're maybe you're not necessarily not interested in winning, but you might be more interested in being able to develop a personal best in a certain style of swimming, for example.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of different ways. So it's yeah, I like this idea of it being subjective. When you're in, so one of the things you mentioned there is when you're in the pool
Mhm.
and you've gone and you've done you've done a race and you've finished and you turn around. Do you have a idea of how well you've performed at that moment, or are you looking at the clock to go like, like, I have no idea how I did there?
I have a rough idea. You do have a rough idea on how it felt. I think the less, again, it kind of goes back to being in the zone. If it's a really good performance, sometimes you can't really remember how the race went because it was so instinctive. You just did it. And those performances tend to be the best because you've not had to think. You've just naturally used your instinct and just followed through. Sometimes the worst performances, if you ask an athlete what their worst performance was, they could probably tell you every single detail about it because your brain is just is too tuned in to everything. You've not allowed it to switch off and just allow that natural instinct to just go with it or go with the flow. But yeah, you do have a rough idea. And again, it's kind of a difficult thing to describe. So I apologize if people are thinking, what on earth am I talking about? But yeah, once you finish, you kind of have a rough idea. I mean, you can see sometimes the competitors around you, depends how fogged up your goggles are. If they're really foggy, then you might not see any people. If the person in front, like in the lane next to you, all you see is their feet, you suddenly feel like, oh, I'm either miles behind or, it might still end up being a really good time, but they just obviously were really, really, really fast. In 2018, I had surgery done on my ankle, and I really struggled to get back into training and into racing because I felt so ashamed that I was going to be so far off my times. I was really kind of not happy about being back in racing because I thought I've been up at this level for so long. Anything lower than that for me just didn't feel, I wasn't comfortable with. So I eventually convinced myself to get back into racing. And as soon as I touched the wall, I kind of did what we call process goals. So we pick small goals that they're just basically small goals that aren't time related, but they are functional, they're technical, they're little bits on, okay, well, this is the outcome that I'd like to look towards, but how am I going to get there? So I'm looking at, not breathing into my turns or doing set number of fly kicks off the wall or stroke counts or something like that. I can focus in on that's not all about the end result. It's how I get to that end result. So I picked two things. And as soon as I touched the wall, I thought, right, did I do my first process goal of working on trying to do more underwater kick to get my ankle moving? So I thought, yep, I managed to do that. Second goal, did I not breathe in the last 10 meters? And I thought, yep, I've done that. Then I looked at the time. And again, by that subjective part of, whether you're happy with your performance or not, it gave me a different perspective on, well, that's that time that I did based on these different process goals. So yeah, when you finish a race, you kind of have a rough idea. So for me, I kind of go through that process. I start the race knowing I've got these two main goals to do at non-peak meets. And as soon as I finish, I check off. And there's some days where I think, oh, you know what? I didn't do that at all. I completely forgot to do that. So then it's a marker being like, right, well, the next race I'm going to do, I need to make sure I do this. And it's just being honest with yourself. You can have like a checklist of things, and with all the good in the world, it's very difficult to sometimes do everything on the checklist. And every now and then when you don't do it, you really need to be quite right. Okay, come on, Hannah, let's get into gear. You can't mess up. You need to get this right. So yeah, once I've ticked those off in my head, then I have a better sense as to how I felt the race went. Because if at any point I feel like, I didn't hit that process goal, when I look at the time, yeah, that performance could have been better. And again, going back to one positive, one negative, I know what I need to do then to move on for the next event. Hopefully that makes sense. Apologies, I did kind of go a bit off the track there.
I really like this. It's super specific. And I wanted to ask you about goal setting because I feel like goal setting in business is relatively easy. you say, I want to make this amount of money, I want to increase profit or decrease costs, whatever it might be. But I'm intrigued in your goal setting procedure,
Yeah.
being an athlete, and not just that, but how you track that.
Yeah.
Because and I'm really interested in this process goal, and I'll tell you the reason I'm interested in it is because what I do from a goal setting perspective, I'm not saying this is the best way, but this is what I do, is I essentially have my my big goal that I want to achieve for the year, let's say, and I break that down into quarterly goals and monthly goals and weekly goals and then daily tasks essentially. So it's like breaking down what I need to do from a process perspective to try and achieve that larger goal. So for you, when you're setting goals and trying to achieve those goals and then tracking those goals, what is your process for that?
Yeah, so for some competitions, we have a form that we fill in. And especially if we're at a competition where we don't have our coach there, it allows whichever coach is kind of standing in for us to know what we're looking for in the event. So it's not all time related. And that in itself is quite good. So we have like our name or the event that we're looking to improve on, and then it's the main process goal that you want to work towards, the ultimate goal, that's not time related, and then like a secondary one. And then you break down the race. So you've got your starts, you've got your first 50, second 50, third 50, depending on how many 50s you got, depending on the length of the race. But you kind of break down the race distance. And again, you're not allowed to use times. So it's trying to take away that black and white element. It's trying to be like, well, yes, that's the time you want to do, but how are you going to do that time? So finding words like, I'm going to hold back on the first 50 because I don't want to expel too much energy, so that the second 50 I can swim faster on. Or somebody who's working on pacing where maybe they always go out really fast and struggle everyone catches them up at the end because they don't have enough energy. And it's, maybe getting them to be more pace aware and balance their energy distribution. So it's looking at it from a little bit less of a black and white perspective and kind of looking at, yes, this is the time you want to target, but how are you going to get there? Is it not breathing into your turns? Is it making sure that you breathing patterns slightly different? There's so many different components, and it's just trying to get the athlete to really think and break down the race to every single component as possible. And just have it all written down. And then you've got like an outcome. What would you be happy with? And again, not time related. So it really takes you away from looking at that time, because from a young age, you're taught to do a PB. Every time you touch the board, you look at the scoreboard and did I go faster? And there's a point in your career where those times don't get any faster. So it's looking at, well, how do you get those little marginal gains? And it's all about the marginal gains, little things that you do. And as you get older, you have to do a lot of work to get like a fraction of a second quicker. And it's trying to look at the options. There are definitely lots of ways, like the phrase, many ways to skin a cat. There's many ways to get to that point, and it's trying to work out what works for you. I know I'm not a big, strong athlete. So for me, I do feel like I have to work incredibly hard. I have to be technically proficient as well. So for me, I love looking at the detail of things and looking at things that maybe others haven't looked at before. And we were told, have a short-term goal, mid-term goal, long-term goal. Those are all good, but breaking it down on how you're going to get there. And things change as well. People get injured. People have days where they feel sick. So it's how you come from that. So making sure that those processes are quite fluid as well. And each competition that we have, just basically writing them out. And I think it is good to have them written out. And knowing that, okay, if it starts going a little bit off track, having faith that it can come back round, or it might be a sign that you might need to make a nudge to change it and go in the other direction. So for us, I've got goals in the gym to try and help with like power and explosive network, and also protection of my joints, just trying to make sure I've got the muscle structure to prevent any injuries. So there's, I guess, a black and white sort of mathematical look at some of my strength and power output. You've got numbers to follow. You've got good weeks where the numbers are really good, some bad weeks where the numbers are really low, and it's trying to kind of get that balance. Training, you've got your times, but you still have those little process goals. Nutrition, you've got your weight management, you've got skin folds. There's lots of little bits that kind of all come in. It's like a big soup. and it's just trying to make sure you get the right amount of each ingredient to kind of put into it. So when it comes to the competition and the race, you kind of feel you've got all that covered. But yeah, it's a difficult one. Apologies. I've kind of gone off on a bit of a tangent with it, but yeah.
There's a lot we can take from that, especially I think around, or something I'm fascinated about is marginal gains, and what are the there's two things that I find interesting to this actually. Is there's a story there around as an athlete as you're younger trying to go and get the personal best, and that's the main thing that you're trying to focus on. And then once you get those, you get to a certain point, it's all about personal gains. And I want to take back like a marketing example, which is oftentimes people will focus on the marginal gains before they actually have the fundamental infrastructure in place. So an example being is they'll build a funnel, they'll build a landing page, and they'll look at changing things like the color of the button, where before they even have people coming to the page. So what you need to do is focus on getting people to the page, and then start to focus on those marginal tiny things that might make a 0.1% difference. 0.1% difference does not make a difference if you're not even getting people there in the first place. So I find that fascinating. Hannah, it's time to play a game.
Okay.
It's time for the game round. It's like the Highland Games, but on a podcast.
The rules are simple. I have 10 cards here. It's a 5-second rule. Have you ever played it?
No.
Okay. I'm interested to see how competitive you are here. So,
let's see.
Essentially, we've got 10 cards. On each card, there's a statement. And I'm going to read that statement out, and you then have 5 seconds to give me an answer to that statement. So, for example, it might be something like name 3 types of ice cream or flavors of ice cream, and you have to say strawberry, chocolate, vanilla within 5 seconds.
Right.
I have no idea what's on these cards. Could be totally random, totally left field. But that's part of the game.
Fab.
Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
This first one, I think you'll probably get. Name 3 types of exercise equipment.
Spinning bike, rowing machine, and what do you call it? Wait,
right. Time. That's the speed. I put the pressure on there. Sorry.
You did.
So,
no worries.
Next one. Name 3 types of hat.
Beret, farmer cap, and Jewish skull cap.
There we go. I'll give it to you.
I don't know why I thought of that.
Just in time. This game gives you some weird stuff.
Oh yeah.
Name 3 things that you put cream on.
Your hands, your feet, and your face.
Nice. Could have gone longer.
Yeah.
Name 3 FA Cup winners.
Oh, I don't really follow football. I don't know. I'm sorry.
I wouldn't have a clue either.
That's terrible. I'm so sorry for any football fans out there.
Name 3 things you might find in the bedroom.
Pillow, duvet, socks.
Nice. Name 3 things that you had to learn on your own.
Confidence, cooking, and using the washing machine.
Nice.
Actually, to tell a lie, my mom helped me with some when I was younger with some of the cooking stuff, but trial and error with other bigger bits. Yeah.
I'll give it to you. Name 3 ways to relax at home.
Watching TV, reading, and playing with the dog.
Nice. Name 3 things beginning with the letter T. T.
T. T. Train, trees, and thesaurus.
Nice. Fair. Name 3 bad things in your life.
Chlorine, cold, and dry skin.
Time was just out. I'm sorry.
That's all good.
And name 3 places you might find a photograph.
Living room, bathroom, bedroom.
Nice. Give it to you. It's true. Hannah, you scored a grand total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of 10. That's a very respectable score.
Not competitive whatsoever.
Yeah. I'm surprised at that. I'm surprised. Maybe it's your ability to handle
pressure.
Maybe not the most pressure you've ever been under.
Well,
we're going to wrap things up now with the rapid fire round.
Time for the rapid fire round. 10 questions, 10 answers, no context. Are you ready?
So I'm going to give you 10 different questions. You have to give me an answer, but you're not allowed to give me context to that
All right.
answer unless I
Okay.
ask for it. So first question is, what's your favorite book?
Horse Whisperer.
Nice. Favorite word?
Chevron.
Fair. What's your most hated food?
Brussels sprouts.
Megan. Biggest pet peeve, either business, personal, or in your case, in sporting?
People who undo their seatbelts on a plane before this sign pings off.
Oh, and then stand up really fast.
Yep, that really gets it.
You're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
What was your dream job as a child?
Becoming a vet.
Nice. What's your favorite music genre?
Indie.
Drink of choice?
Sparkling water and juice.
Are you a morning or night? I've never tried that. Are you a morning or night person?
Morning.
Would you rather cuddle a baby panda or a baby chimp?
Baby panda.
And what is one parting piece of advice you would like to leave the listeners?
Be kind to yourself.
I like it. I like that. That's a great way to end. Hannah, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. It's been fascinating for me as a sport and athleticism lover to hear some of the ways that you work as an athlete and how you navigate the highs and the lows and all the things that go into high performance. So it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
It's no problem at all. If you are listening and you enjoyed the show today, please be sure to subscribe, drop a wee review, and screenshot the show on your phone. Tag us on Instagram and let us know what's one of the big things that you took away from today. It'd be really interesting for us to hear, especially if you're a sport lover. Come and tell us what you took away from this. Once again, Hannah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for being here. And for everybody listening, again, thank you for listening. Awesome. That is the podcast done. Thanks for that. We're still live. For everybody that is tuning in live or on the replay, thank you so much for being here. Once again, if you are on the replay, drop us a comment, #replay. Tell us what you took away from today's show. And if you're watching live, again, drop a comment and let us know what you took away. I'm going to be back here tomorrow evening. We've got another episode tomorrow night, which I'm very excited about. But other than that, thanks, folks, for tuning in. And we'll see you all very soon.